What's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back into the video today, and today the Houston Texans have signed 13 players to the practice squad, and they've also claimed 2 players from the Buffalo Bills for the practice squad as well. Today, the Houston Texans added 15 players to the practice squad when they are supposed to add 16. That last player that is expected to join the Houston Texans practice squad is expected to be wide receiver Jared Wayne. That signing has not happened yet, and that should be the last spot. That should be the last spot for the practice squad. Okay, so let's go over the full practice squad. Before we go over all the signings, we're going to go over the 2 players from the Buffalo Bills that were 7th-round picks in this year's draft that were both claimed from the Buffalo Bills off waivers. That is offensive lineman Nick Broker and defensive back Alex Austin. And here are the players that the Houston Texans signed that played for the Houston Texans in training camp and preseason and got cut, did not make the 53-man roster, got cut from the 90-man roster going down to 53, and now are back with the Texans on their practice squad. Here are the following 13 players. All right, starting with defensive lineman Khalil Davis, who impressed throughout preseason and training camp, had, I think, multiple sacks throughout the preseason with 2 or 3 tackles for loss as well. Definitely 2. It might have been 3. Looked really impressive in training camp for the Texans as well. He was a guy that, if you would have asked, is he going to make the 53-man roster when he signed originally with the Texans, you would have been like, hell no. But some of the work he was doing in preseason and training camp, he was starting to make a little bit of a case, a little bit of a push to make the 53-man roster, but he came just a little bit short. Texans kind of wanted to put him on that 53-man roster, but they liked him a lot, wanted to bring him back. They wanted to bring him back to the point where he'd have a chance to, play for the Texans at some point this season by joining the practice squad. And I'm really glad for him. I really like him, and I'm glad that the Texans brought him back. Then another player the Texans signed to the practice squad was Austin Deculus, who the Texans selected in the 7th round in last year's draft. Not a big fan of him. Because he has not been his best in his 5 games last year as a rookie and the preseason. But even though I don't like him that much, and he's a Texan, so I got to support him. The third player was Jacoby Francis. I really like him. He's a defensive back. He goes by Kobe Francis. I really like him. I don't know how much he'll play for the Texans this year. Probably not a lot, but like on the other end, you'll probably see the 2 first players, Khalil Davis and Austin Deculus. You might see them a little bit for the Houston Texans in the regular season. If there's some inactives or there's some players on IR, you might see some players. You might see those are 2 players like Khalil Davis or Austin Deculus. Or if there are some injuries at their position, you very well could see them on game day for the Houston Texans. I don't know about Jacoby Francis, and maybe if he's doing good in practice, maybe. And then the 4th player is a defensive lineman. This is another guy I really don't know. This is another player that I don't think will play a lot for the Houston Texans. This is a guy I don't think will play a lot for the Houston Texans in the regular season, but we'll see. His name is Ali Gay. He's a defensive lineman. And then the 5th one was the 7th round pick that we selected in this year's draft was Brandon Hill, defensive back from, I can't remember where he went. But was it Penn? It wasn't Penn State. Pittsburgh. It was Pittsburgh. He went to Pittsburgh, and he wasn't that great throughout training camp and preseason. But I'm glad the Texans are giving him another shot because here's why: he was injured for most of training camp and preseason. Didn't really get a chance to play a lot. So I'm glad the Texans are giving him another shot on the practice squad. Next, the Texans have brought back Johnny Johnson, running back / wide receiver. I really like him. He showed out last preseason in 2021, showed some really good things, did some decent things in the preseason this year. He can play running back. He can play wide receiver. I like the addition for him. And then this is a guy who I think, out of all these guys on this list, and I could get a lot of hate for this because I think there are some players like Khalil Davis and Derek Rivers, and maybe even you could say possibly same thing goes for maybe even the same thing goes for De Alalale. But I honestly, Dalton Keene, who we signed to the practice squad, who was on the roster as well, scored a touchdown in the Patriots game. He plays fullback and tight end. Out of all these guys, I think him and Khalil Davis, those two guys, have the chance to do the most damage for the Houston Texans when it comes to game days. I think they might play the most. Out of all these guys, I think Khalil Davis and Dalton Keene might play the most out of all of them. Maybe Derek Rivers as well. I really like him. I liked what I saw from him in preseason. I like a little bit what I saw from him in training camp. And I think, you definitely got Andrew Beck at that fullback position, but you got a backup. You got another player who can play that fullback position. He's going to be that backup fullback who can also play tight end. And I really like the addition. He's a good blocker. He's a decent wide receiver as well. When it comes to running routes, and he can be great for the Texans on goal line plays. But at the same time, I think the only thing that makes it really hard is Andrew Beck, who is going to be our starting fullback this season, can do the same thing. So that might make it a little bit hard on Dalton Keene, though. But I love that the Texans brought this guy back. Then we also signed back Jimmy Morrissey, who can play center and guard. Excited to have him back. I thought he should have made the 53-man roster. Still upset that Michael Dieter is not going to be on this team at all. He was a guy I really liked and really was looking forward to see this season, but he's not going to be on this team. And then at 9 was Derek Rivers, defensive end. He played 5 games for the Texans in 2021 and was supposed to have a better and bigger role in 2022, but he got injured in the last preseason game in 2021 against the 49ers and had a season-ending injury. Kind of like guard Kenyon Green. All right, 10 defensive end Oda Ellie, who had a couple sacks in the preseason and looked really solid. He's an undrafted rookie. Was going to be really hard for him to make this 53-man roster, but actually, I remember there was an article that was saying, top 10 players, or it was like 15 players who have it. It was like this was early in training camp, and this was. No, actually, this wasn't early. This wasn't after training. This wasn't before training camp. This was actually after all the undrafted free agents started to get signed. And there was an article by Bleacher Report, and it was like 15 players, 15 undrafted NFL players that have a chance to make 53-man roster. And one of the 15 was Oda Ellie. And I mean, I'm glad the Texans brought him back. I think he could do some decent things for the Houston Texans if he gets the chance to play. Then 11 is wide receiver Steven Sims Jr. I was upset we cut him, but at the same time, there's going to be a lot of kick and punt returners that are already on this team, like Tank Dell, Tavier Thomas, Mike Boone as well, DeRay Ngabalawe. There's a lot of already kick and punt returners, but now you even have Steven Sims Jr. On the practice squad as a wide receiver and a kick and punt returner. Then you have 5th-round draft pick from 2021, Garrett Wallow. He's a decent linebacker and a really good player on special teams. And then the last person to get added to the practice squad was punter Ty Zentner. It's good to have a punter on the practice squad just in case Cameron Johnston, punter, is not ready to go week 1, because yesterday there was some new news about Cameron Johnston. It looked like it was better news and that maybe he can be ready for the Houston Texans week 1 against the Baltimore Ravens, but there's still a chance he can miss the first two games of the season. So to have Ty Zentner, who looks solid for the Houston Texans in the preseason game against the New Orleans Saints as the punter, had a long 55-yard punt, had 9 of them too, was averaging 44 yards per punt in his 9. I really like him, and he could be a decent backup on the practice squad for Cameron Johnston if he's not able to start for the Texans at punter week 1 or week 2. That's it for the video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts. I like the practice squad. It's not complete yet. You still are waiting on the last spot, which is expected to be wide receiver Jared Wayne, who just completely went off for the Texans in training camp and preseason. We'll see, though. I'm excited. That's it for the video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and peace out. Go Texans.